Hello, hello, welcome to Rachel Paints Poorly. My name is Rachel and I paint poorly. Today we are going to be doing part 2 of the 2-part going down to Florida thrifting, haul, turning thrifted items into things I can wear in Florida series, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. So if you haven't watched last time, I turned a pair of window valances and a shower curtain into 2 pairs of shorts respectively. So you can go over and watch that afterwards. Long story short is we are going to Florida for March, and I don't really have a whole lot of warm weather clothes because I live in Ohio and it's cold here most of the time. So today I am turning a tablecloth that I got when I got the window valances and the shower curtain, and this time I am turning that tablecloth into a sundress. And unlike the previous time, I didn't use a pattern. So last time for the shorts, I used a 1970s vintage pattern, and this time I just sort of wung it, I guess. I used this old mannequin that I have, and I pinned it on the mannequin. I pinned the fabric on me, and so that's what we're gonna be looking at today. I'm gonna go over how I did that with y'all. And a couple things before we get started, like a little trivia, a little tidbit. If you take a look at my hand throughout, you can see before I started, I cut myself pretty bad on my knuckle. I stabbed myself with my own fingernail while I was folding laundry. Worst chore ever, but without further ado, I'm going to get started and let's make these things, shall we? As there is no pattern, I am going to start by draping the tablecloth on myself. I had a general idea of what I wanted. I wanted the bodice to attach in the front and a zipper, the front bodice down the middle, and then I wasn't entirely certain what I wanted to do with the skirt, so currently I'm just pinning the bodice. First on myself and then on the mannequin. You'll notice that the mannequin is really small. It is not actually a sewing mannequin. It is an old child-sized mannequin that I got from the wedding gown shop that I used to work at as an alterations specialist. They were going to throw it out, so I took it. They said I could have it. So it is too small for me in every respect, but it's the best I have. And no, I'm not going to buy a new mannequin because I have a mannequin. So now that I've pinned it on the mannequin, I'm just double checking on myself. And here I have it back on the mannequin, just doing some touch-ups. The old measure twice, cut once, that also applies in sewing. Measure many times and then cut. So that's what we're doing here. After that, when you pin alterations, the pins are all on the outside. So what I want is I want to switch the pins from the fashion or the right side of the fabric to the inside of the fabric because you're going to sew it on the inside. So that's what we're doing. You can also see me doing that on the coat when I altered that. And now we are just sewing the darts in the fabric and pressing everything down. It's very important to press your fabric when you're sewing it. That's what gives it that finished, clean, crisp look. If you don't press it, it's gonna look kind of shoddy and definitely homemade. And there is nothing wrong with being homemade, of course, but if you want a good, clean, crisp look, you're gonna wanna press everything, alterations included. I sewed the top of those seams down, those darts down, and now I'm just sewing the cups in. This is going to be straps, but it's not going to have any sleeves. So if you want to get around having to wear a bra and hiding your straps, it's easier just to sew cups straight into it. I get them from Wawac. I think that's how you pronounce it, sewing. It's an online company, sells notations and things, and it's just easier to get it from there and a lot cheaper than someplace like Joann's. Okay, so what we're getting ready to do is extract the bodice from the tablecloth. So you can see I have it all pinned. It's all fitted. I have it pinned to this tank top, so it's not going anywhere. And this here is the middle. And then this is where I'm thinking I'm going to cut it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the zipper in the middle. And this is where I'm going to separate this from this, I think. Or I'll leave it as is and try to turn it into a skirt, maybe. Maybe smooth out this seam here so it's one piece. I'm still deciding, but that's where we're at right now. So right now I'm going to pin this. But first, I'm going to turn on Hercule Poirot. He's kicking butt, taking names. Since one side of the tablecloth is already finished, I'm just going to pin the zipper to the tablecloth, and then I'm cutting out the bodice. I decided to separate the bodice from the skirt because there's a big stain on the skirt right underneath where I had pinned the dart, and I didn't want that big stain on the dress. So here I am cutting the bodice out of the tablecloth. So now we have two separate pieces, the bodice and the tablecloth. It's going to be turned into the skirt. And we're just double checking the bodice here, making sure everything fits, everything looks good. And then we can move on. We're going to do the straps next. I just cut a long strip. I wanted the strap to be about 1 inch, so cut a long strip of fabric, and then I always press things. I think it's easier to press it. And then it has a nice, clean, crisp seam, and it makes it easier when you're sewing. Just sew straight down the tube to join it, and then we have to flip it right side out. I alternated between just sort of tugging at it with my fingers and then using actually a skewer, like a cooking skewer for meat, to stab that fabric up. And then we just press everything. Pressing is the key. It's not very sexy, it's pretty boring. Sometimes you burn yourself, but it needs to be done. Always press everything. It's the advice of the day. Okay, everybody, it is now time to sew the zipper. And if you'll remember from the shorts video, zippers are my nemesis. And I don't have Albert anymore. Albert is still in the shop. You might remember that he broke last video that we were sewing, and they're ordering a part for him. So that usually means everything's going great, right? Anyways, we are going to be sewing the zipper with just a regular zipper foot on Fred here. We'll see how that goes. Okie doke, here we go. I think I'm just gonna fix this part here. It's a little crooked. And then after that, it will be all good to go. Okay, now that the zipper is done, everything is set, we're just pinning the straps. Easier to pin it on me. I pinned the backs of the straps first, where I want them to be on the back, and then I pinned the fronts while it was on me. That makes it a lot easier to see because obviously your eyes are in front of your head. I also like to have my straps crisscrossed. I think it makes my shoulders look better. So pro tip, crossing your straps makes your shoulders look better. And now we are just sewing the straps on. Thank you, Fred. I took a quick break from sewing to admire my Valentine's Day flowers, only to find the remains of what would appear to be the ghost of Valentine's Day past, and holy cow, left behind traces. Another victim. Who was that? Cheese and crackers, the ghost of Valentine's Day past. So I put the dress back onto the mannequin to pin this skirt. Now there's extra fabric on top of the skirt because when I cut out the bodice, there is the extra fabric hanging off from where the bodice is cut off. I'll zoom in so you can see it, but I am currently just pinning it to get a better idea of how much gathering I need to take in, how much I need to dart. I didn't actually cut any of the fabric, it's all just darted, pressed, and then sewn flat, and any remaining raw edges will be serged with Carlo. and I'm trying on the skirt. You can see here where I cut out that bodice. The front is darted to go with the bodice and the back is just gathered. So all of that extra fabric is just gathered up. Here I am just pressing the top down so I know where to cut that extra fabric out on that line so it's not hanging out anymore. And actually I like that little hangover, that little almost faux bustle so much that I decided to keep it. And you'll see that later on. And now we just sew the darts into the skirt. So all of that extra fabric is just gathered up. There are some strips that are left over, like the part with the stain and parts that I couldn't salvage, but I'm trying to have as little waste as possible while I'm doing this tablecloth. For the little ruffle in the back of the skirt, I am sewing a gathering stitch. You can do it by hand, but I think it's easier just to have the loosest setting for your stitch, the longest stitch on your machine, sew straight across where you want that gather to be. I do this for sleeves as well. And then here, I've already made the ruffle and I have that attached to the skirt, but you can see me making that gathered back for the skirt. So you just have to tug on the edges of the string, pull it, it's gonna make a ruffle pleating, and then I like to mess with it a bit and sort of pull out the pleats, make sure them look almost like when you were a kid and you folded a piece of paper into a fan, like those sort of accordion pleats. I think it just gives it a cleaner look overall after it's been sewn down, so it doesn't look quite so messy, and it's also easier to space out your pleats so everything looks neat and tidy, which is always important when we're sewing. Okay, this is where I have Carlo, my serger, and what I am doing is I am serging the two pieces of the skirt, the actual skirt itself and then that little ruffle that I sewed over the back, almost like a little bustle. And what I'm doing is I'm serging them together. So the two separate pieces have now been attached. They're sewn together. It's going to make it easier and lay flatter while I am securing the garments to one another. This was actually kind of difficult on poor Carlo because the fabric was so thick. He was having a rough time. And I paid for it because he jammed up and I had to spend a bunch of time unclogging him. So, serves me right. And now I'm using Fred and I'm just sewing all around. I'm sewing the skirt to the bodice. And here we are pressing the pleats. This is the back, the little ruffle you can see sitting on the back, pressing that down. And then I'm going to flip it to the inside and I'm going to press everything from the inside as well. One more thing, I almost forgot. Bum ruffle, yay, nay. I kind of like it. It was just a little idea at first, thought it looked kind of cool, and then I did it. And the more I thought about it and saw it, the more I liked it. So, like it, love it, hate it, let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so after I did all that, I sewed everything together, I tried it on, and then there were just a couple of minor alterations that needed to be made. The front two darts on either side of the zipper needed to come in around my waist, and the top along my back between the two straps needed to come in as well. It was gapping a bit. So what I did was I pinned it, and the outside measured how much each needed to come in. Right now I'm working on one of the front darts, and then I just unpick that serged edge with the seam ripper. Once it's separated, then I'm going to measure the amount from the seam line using that seam gauge, sew it in, and then do the same for the skirt. And because I'm taking it in, I don't have to pick out the original seam because you're not going to see it anyways. So I'm doing the same on the other side, and then they are going to be sewn back together and then serged and pressed, of course, always pressed. And there you have it, my upcycled tablecloth dress. Thank you so much for watching. As always, thumbs up if you enjoyed that video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more like it. I have plenty of interesting things coming down the pipeline in the next month or so. Be sure to stick around for that. If you're interested, I'm over on Instagram. You can follow me at Rachel Paints Poorly. Until next time, bye.